Hello and welcome to another episode of So Fly. It is it's the end of September, actually. I can't really believe that September's already gone by. And we're back here recording another episode. And, of course, my name is Mitch, and we've got Yilma.
Hello, everyone.
And Aldo's not with us today because he is up in Temagami on the third trip of the 3 weeks. Yeah, in Temagami, that Temagami backcountry, looking for brookies. But that's okay. He's just left today on a van up north, and I'm sure he's having a ball. No internet connection, but that means there's good fishing. But we do have a very special guest on the show today. Casey Badger is a 40-year-old ex-professional BMX rider, now illustrator and graphic designer based out of Portland, Oregon. Casey spends most of his days traveling the West with his wife, Kayla, and wonderful cattle dog, Juniper, looking for any fish that will take a fly. Casey started fly fishing in the mountains of eastern Arizona at the age of 7 with his father float tubing around alpine lakes in search of brown trout and hiking miles up small mountain creeks for Apache trout. His father passed away when Casey was 18, and for 10 years after the fly rods were retired. But after setting the rods aside for a decade, Casey picked them back up, and since then he's consumed by all things fly. And today he's on So Fly. Casey, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming, man. We're super stoked to have you on finally.
I know. It's been
all
a long
things
time,
fly.
Huh? All things
It has, man.
fly.
It has. We've had Kayla on the show a couple times, and people listening might have heard those episodes. But, really excited to finally get you on, and we've been wanting to do it for a while. But it was cool to finally meet in Montana because, of course, you were part of the Reddington Rodeo.
Yep. What a rodeo it was.
I saw those pics.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, it was
man.
a good time.
It was so good. Yeah.
Still trying to
missed you, Yilma.
live there.
Oh, you didn't miss me.
Oh no,
We missed
did.
everybody.
We
that
Had a
wasn't
great
there.
time.
Yeah, but I mean,
The
the
more the
Bears
merrier
thing.
on
Yeah,
that
we were
trip.
kind of talking about the Bears a little bit before we started recording here, and Yilma would have been so scared of the Grizzlies, man. Like I thought I was
100%.
I thought I was like totally not scared of bears, and Yilma was always like overreacting. And then I saw that Bigfoot print that I thought was Bigfoot. It was a grizzly print, and I was like, oh shit, here we go. Okay, but yeah, that was super fun, and super stoked to chat today, Casey, just about your fly life and everything else. But whereabouts are you calling in from today?
I'm currently in my basement in Portland, Oregon.
Amazing. And how's that treating you?
I pretty much avoid coming down here like the plague because this is where my work office is.
Nice.
And I try to avoid that as much as I can. But here we are.
Nice. I love it. Well, thank
Yep.
you so much
But,
for
yeah.
thanks for taking the shitty plunge and going to the basement for this. Really appreciate it. Like the kind of artwork you have in the back, though. It looks dope. It looks like a cool space.
Thanks. It is a cool space. That's I think that's a project that's done and waiting for its owner to pick it up. And there's some other things on the table. Just I do illustration and graphic design, but I like to actually make things too. So
Right.
that's where that stuff happens.
Tangible stuff,
amazing.
yeah. Create art and so you actually sell it to like people like just as art pieces as well, like your illustrations.
So that thing behind me. Let's see, that little guy was a
that's dope.
commission of a friend that just got married. So another friend commissioned
Cool.
me to paint that for him and his wife. And there's some
Wow.
beer bottles back there that I designed the label on. So that's where those ended up when they came. I don't know. I don't really.
Amazing. Oh.
I find it hard to drink beer at home. So the beer that ends up at home
Yeah.
kind of stays around for a while.
Nice, man. I love it. That's cool. That's super
Yeah.
cool. Okay, well, why don't we just jump
Wait.
into...
I'm
Yilma,
intrigued
yes,
a little
Yilma.
bit more. Sorry. Kate, what's your portfolio? I want to check out your portfolio.
I don't have a portfolio. I'm
have it
blowing
online?
it. No.
Oh, that's okay.
I know it's in progress. I started I've been going down this rabbit hole of I should probably tell people that I make art and I do design work and I'm an illustrator because I'm really, really bad at self-promotion. But I've been lucky enough to stay semi-busy with the people that do know that I do it. And, obviously thanks to fucking Instagram, that's a big help in our lives. But yeah, I've been compiling all of the stuff that I've done, and it's I'm oh shit, I probably should have done this 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
that's
if
where
I,
I'm
had
at.
if I had a nickel, sorry, I interrupted. I was just saying, if I had a nickel for every artist, graphic designer, illustrator that said, I suck at self-promotion, I would be a millionaire. And then I wouldn't even need to self-promote. Because
right.
it's always the case, man. Don't feel
I've been
bad.
thinking about that a little bit lately. Like, I think that, like, it's a perfect storm of, like, that personality type is inherently in artists, so to speak. And then the other side of it is that, like, our generation, or at least my generation, I don't know where you guys are standing, but it was, like, pounded upon us to be modest and not talk about yourself. And, like,
100%.
you know, so, like, and so then we grow up into this world of, like, oh, shit, like, I actually have to figure out how to talk about myself to, like, succeed if this is what I want to do. So it's been a battle. An internal battle.
Be humble. Yoma, be
Yeah.
humble.
Be humble, but yet be confident.
Put yourself out there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Finding that, like, how to promote yourself without coming across as, like, being like, you know, boasting, I guess. Yeah. I totally get it.
Yeah.
Well,
cool.
Let's take a step back here and talk about just kind of before we keep on going to the present day. Just talk a little bit about you know how you got into fly fishing. Like, how'd you start fishing? I mean, you mentioned you started fishing with your pops back in Arizona, because that's where you're from, right?
Yep, I'm from Arizona. I'm from, like, a suburb of Phoenix called Scottsdale.
Nice.
Yeah, my dad grew up. Like, I grew up with my dad, like, riding dirt bikes. Like, I got my first dirt bike when I was 4.
Awesome.
I started racing BMX when I was 8 because, you know, my dad was like, well, that's a cheaper alternative than racing motorcycles, and I loved riding my BMX bike. He also did a bunch of fly fishing and some outdoor stuff, and so when I was like 7-ish, you know, I was pretty fucking hyper as a kid, so we were on a fishing and camping trip, and I couldn't just sit there, and I think I was driving my dad nuts, and I, like, picked up his fly rod, and he's like, oh, I'll just teach you how to do this. Like, you're always casting or doing something. He's like, this could be really good. So he kind of, you know, he taught me how to cast a little bit that night. I caught I remember my first fish, which is kind of crazy. I think maybe actually everyone remembers the first fish, so maybe it's not that crazy. But yeah, I caught a little brown on a.
Like a?
It was a brown trout on a little parachute Adams at this lake's called Holly Lake. It's on the Apache reservation in eastern Arizona. Yeah, it was fucking awesome. Like,
that's a really good first fish, man. Like a brown on a parachute Adams. Like, damn. Man.
Yeah, it was super cool. And then from there, like, he got me my own little float tube, and I had some really shitty neoprene waders that had a million holes in them, but I would just, like, put headphones in and listen to music and swim around the lake and cast or troll or, you know, whatever I was doing at the time. But yeah, that was super fun. And then, you know, and then getting into, like, technical small creek fishing was super fun. And then we'd ended up going to Lee's Ferry, which I know Aldo has been, but, you know, I spent a lot of time there with my dad as a kid. And then, you know, when my dad passed away, that's where we ended up putting his ashes, because that was his favorite place.
Oh, wow.
So,
it's amazing.
Yeah, it was cool. Like, and if anyone's seen that last Reddington Topo collab video we did, that kind of spoke on that a little bit and kind of went back full circle. It was cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wicked. So your dad was a big fly angler then? Like, he was doing
I
it
wouldn't
for
say he
like
was
a long time, or?
I wouldn't say he was a big fly angler. I think he had a good friend that he met riding dirt bikes that he fly fished, and then he got my dad into it. So I think my dad was probably, my dad was maybe like in his late 20s when he started fly fishing.
Okay.
And he passed away right before he turned 40. So he wasn't into it for a super long time, but
yeah.
But
enough to kind of introduce you to it and also take you out fishing and, you know, actually get to spend
time.
Yeah.
And I think he did like what a lot of people did, is I think once he started, he got like pretty obsessed with it for a little while. Like, you know, he went down the same rabbit hole I think we all did. Like, he wanted to do it as much as possible. He learned how to tie flies. Like, we had a parrot growing up that we would use my parrot's feathers to tie flies with. Like, awesome. He taught me how to tie flies when I was about that same time. So
that's awesome.
Sorry,
Yilma's doing little finger tricks.
It's a serious subject, and I'm trying to fix the camera.
And, if you're watching this on YouTube, watch this on YouTube, because you'll see Yilma's blurry camera. These cameras are good, but they get a little bit weird sometimes.
I just have to wait.
Yeah, you just got to give it some time. Well, that's cool, man. Like, what was it about fishing, like when you first started, I mean, you mentioned you just got to kick around and kind of get your energy out, but like what was it specifically about fly fishing that made you want to keep doing it?
I don't know. Honestly, like I always loved the act of fishing, you know, like I don't know if it's like the animalistic side that, you know, you're catching something and then you're you know, higher on the food chain, so to speak, or if it was you know, as a kid, that's probably what it was, you know, like, and I was competitive and I always wanted to catch more fish or bigger fish than my dad. And that was a fun little rivalry. You know, at that time when I was a kid, it was more or less just something that I did with my dad.
Right.
You know, it was then, I think it was completely different than what it is now. You know, like,
yeah.
I think as a kid, it was probably good for me because I was so hyper. It was probably something that, you know, if I can look back, it was something to slow me down, so to speak, you know, like,
yeah,
it drove all my energy into like one thing. I mean, I don't know. I guess it still does that. Like,
yeah, you can get
still
all
a
your,
good thing
you can
to
just
slow
kind
me
of,
down.
I guess it can
Channel
consume
everything
you,
into
you can
one.
really like, yeah, you can put a ton of attention into it if you want, right? And so it's like
Right.
kind of good in that sense if you've got a very active mind, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably, if I had to, like, you know, give it a reason, that's probably the reason.
Yeah. And getting, like, actually having like being able to spend time on the water with your dad, like fishing when you're young, you know, that's pretty nice too. Like actually having like a fishing partner in that sense, you know, when you're a kid to kind of show you the ropes.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like, obviously you don't realize it at the time, but looking back, like, my dad was 100% my best friend. Like, we did everything together. Like, rode dirt bikes, went fishing, and he went to all my BMX races, and then he started racing for something else to do with me, you know, like.
Oh, cool.
So, you know, I cherished that childhood, and I couldn't, like, I wouldn't trade it for anything, obviously, you know, like. And then, you know, I laugh now that I talk to my mom, and my mom's just like, yeah, you just turned into your dad. You're the same fucking person that he was, so good job. And I was like, oh, that's cool. He was cool.
Yeah, that's super cool. That's really cool, man.
Yeah, man. Apple did not fall far.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, man.
So you
wait. Let me just try this thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, or Yoma, get really close to it, Yoma, and then slowly back away like we do. You know, I think that works. This is the type of added. This is the type of added content that people really love on YouTube. You know, like these little like shady things that I'm not going to edit out.
Let me try again.
I'm not editing out anything.
Ah, there we go. Hey,
there you go.
You're right.
Nice, man.
Aldo would be killing me right now.
If it's any consolation, you didn't change it all on my end. You look the same.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
The good old internet connection. I love it. Okay, so you started fly fishing when you were a kid with your dad, doing the lakes and the streams. You said BMX racing was the first thing you did in BMX. So you were actually like just racing. It wasn't like a trick type of thing at that point.
No, I just was see who could pedal the fastest. I started that when I was 8, so about the same. I mean, honestly, like around the same time that I started fly fishing. So
yeah,
these two.
And did
big
both of those things like
at
fly fishing and biking? Did those kind of like coincide, or were you more into biking? Because you would eventually become a pro BMXer.
When I was a kid, I think I liked riding. Like I liked bikes more than anything. You know.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like I said, I didn't fly fish for like 10 years, and after my dad passed away, my bike became like my therapist, so to speak. You know, like it was the only thing that I could do that would, you know, detract my mind from that stuff. And so then that evolved into, you know, just becoming a professional athlete. Athlete is a weird word, but professional at it, and traveling, and that just evolved and became its own thing. And I didn't really think about fly fishing at all, you know, like I would every now and then think about it. Like we did a trip to New Zealand for 10 days and we were just on all these crazy rivers. And I knew that those were good fly fishing rivers, you know, like I could still look at water and be like, fuck, that looks really good.
Yeah.
And I remember that was like one of the first times where I was like in my head, like I should probably try to like find all my fly fishing stuff and see if I could still do this. But, you know, it took a couple of years after that to really do it again, you know?
Yeah,
for sure.
But yeah, there was a lot wrapped into the not fly fishing, you know, that because it was such a thing with my dad, like after my dad passed away, like I sold my dirt bike. I put all the fly fishing stuff in my mom's attic. Anything that basically reminded me of him, I didn't do, more or less. You know, like I didn't race anymore. I didn't, you know, all of these things I didn't do. So, yeah, it just took like a random camping trip with a bunch of friends, and we ended up going back to one of the lakes that we used to go fishing at a lot with my dad. And I was just like, I didn't really put a lot of thought into it. I was just like, oh, I'm going to go find my fly fishing stuff and see if I can still do it. And then when I was doing it, like, it just, like, all clicked. Like, I was like, why the fuck did I not do this for the last 10 years? Like, this is insane. Like, I can still cast. I still remember everything. Or, you know, like, as much as I knew. I didn't know a lot at the time. But yeah, and then I was, like, instantly obsessed again. Like, I just, from there, like, went down the rabbit hole of, like, reading everything that I could and revisiting all the places that I went with my dad. And then I met, through bikes and a friend of a friend, like, this guy by the name of Manny Chi, who is basically, like, an Arizona fly fishing / bass fishing legend. And he was like, he hadn't fished for a while either. And he was like, we should go fishing. He's like, I have this boat that I haven't used in, like, 5 years. Like, he's like, let's go try to catch stripers in the lake one night. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And he had this, like, badass Cayman flats, like, Texas flat skiff. And we went and caught stripers. And he got super psyched on fly fishing again. And then he's got a cabin in eastern Arizona by where we grew up. So we spent a lot of time, like, fishing. And he fully, like, taught me everything that he had learned about fly fishing. He taught me the carp game. He taught me the bass game. He taught me the, you know, the real creek game, you know, like I knew how to like toss a dry fly, but he was like, no, you got to do this and this and this. And you got to stock up on the fish. And he honestly taught me everything that I knew or know, you know?
Right. Yeah. All the technical stuff, like really getting into
exactly,
it. You know?
Exactly. And he's one of the most amazing guides / teachers I've ever come across. So I got super fortunate in that I, you know, made that friendship.
Yeah. So it was around then when you were like 18, you said you kind of put all the stuff away after like that. It's obviously a traumatic experience, right? Like going through something like that and putting everything kind of away. Is that when you got more into BMXing for those kind of 10 years in between fly and not?
Yeah, totally. I rode the whole time between, you know, like from when I started racing to, I mean, I still ride 3 days a week, you know, like, but yeah, after my dad passed away, you know, like I didn't ever try to be anything in bikes or fly fishing or anything, you know, like it just, I think that things happen naturally or you put effort in and you get stuff back basically. But yeah, I just, you know, I quit racing and I built trails in the desert and rode bikes a lot and started going to contests with friends. And I had a friend that got sponsored by a bike company out of New York and he put me on the team and it kind of just naturally evolved into, you know, traveling and getting photos in magazines and in that evolution of becoming a, you know, a person in the industry. So, but yeah, I mean, it definitely consumed my life. Like I went to college through that time. So I just kind of laughed that I like half-assed both of them. You know, I went to art school and it took me longer than it should have to graduate for that. And I turned down a lot of experiences and trips on the bike side because of school. And, you know, I didn't juggle them very well. You know, like I knew I had to go to college, but I wasn't going to stop riding or having this opportunity to do what I did. In hindsight, I probably should have just not gone to college for a while and done that and then figured it out. But I mean, whatever. But
you must have had so many crazy, awesome experiences doing BMX. Like it sounds like such an interesting kind of unique world, especially at that time, right? You know.
Oh, it was amazing. Like it was a perfect time in my life. It was a perfect time for the industry. Like I got extremely lucky with the brands that I worked with and what they allowed me to do and have the support that they gave me and the trips that we got to go on. And, you know, honestly, now is different, but until like 5 years ago, 100% of the people I know and are friends with are all because of bikes. You know, so now it's a little bit different because now I have the fly fishing world mixed in, and it's the same thing as passionate people kind of come together, and we all figured out we're all like-minded, and that works out. But
and we fish and we make stuff, and we kind of just have fun.
Exactly.
You know? Like it feels like similar, kind of. Yeah,
absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, it's cool.
But
the two worlds are.
They're strikingly similar, which you wouldn't think that they are. You know, I joked when I started, when I got on Reddington, I was like, I basically was fading out of BMX, just like my passion was shifting from riding bikes nonstop all day, every day, to wanting to go spend more time in the outdoors and fishing. And then I, you know, lucked into getting on Reddington around that same time. And I joked that, like, my first trip was, I was like, I traded getting picked up in a van in, like, fucking Philadelphia for getting picked up in a van in Washington, you know? Like, it's really the same thing, but, like, instead of going to the skate park or riding around the streets of Philly all day and hurting myself, like, I just go spend time on a beautiful river for 3 days, like.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's really cool. It's a nice, I mean, I feel like maybe your experience working with brands and doing that kind of BMX stuff maybe helped kind of like, you know, maybe you got to that point where you were like, wait, I can kind of do, like, was it like that where you're like, I can do this in fly fishing? Like, why don't I just
It was 100% like that. I didn't think that I could do that in fly fishing, but, you know, long story short with Reddington is I got asked through Twitter to come do a Reddington shoot through a photographer. A year later, I got but I got a call from the brand manager at the time, was like, hey, we need you to come do the shoot again. And we talked about, like, she was like, well, what was your deal with bikes? And I was just talking about, like, how travel worked and how my sponsorship worked and how the industry worked. And we got into talking about marketing and how products are marketed and what BMX does opposed to, like, what fly fishing does and how they're similar and how, you know, each side has goods and bads. And she was like, how do you know this much about marketing? And how do you know this much about these worlds? And I'm like, I don't know. I just do, I guess. Like, I just, you know, I inherently picked it up along the way. Like I had a signature frame and bars and stuff on the bike side. And I created the graphics and, you know, I went through the whole marketing side on that, which, you know, teaches you a lot. But you know, that conversation with her, it ended up just being like, well, do you want to do that with Reddington? And I was like, are you serious? Yeah. Like, I'm like, I thought you just flew me out here to, like, take photos in the new waders and that was going to be it for the rest of my life. Done with that, you know? She's like, no, let's continue this relationship. And, you know, like, I think we could both benefit from it. Cool.
Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, you know, why not? Like, that's the dream, right? Like, that's what, probably a lot of people listening to this podcast are like, dang, how do I, like, you know, just make fly fishing more a part of my life and actually get to do all these cool things? And I mean, you know, I think because of just the way you say marketing is these days, you kind of can, right? Like if you put in the love and the work.
Yeah, and I don't know. I always say, like, people ask me that all the time, obviously, and I'm like, I don't know. Don't try. Like, honestly, like, if you're like reaching out, bugging people, they're kind of.
Yeah. And if you have some good ideas once in a while, that helps too, right? You know?
Totally. Yeah. You have to have something to offer.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, let's talk about this penis carp drawing that you did. Been seeing that everywhere.
Explain it, Yoma.
Yeah. It's really it's obviously the backside of this phallic fishy thing is the carp, but then the mouth is the head of the penis, and it's spewing something from its urinary tract. I forget what it is actually. So Casey's like, "What the fuck?"
I mean, maybe that's an interpretation that I haven't seen.
Well, let me see if I can find it again.
To me,
it's just a fly. It's just going for a fly. I remember, like, from afar, it just looks like that's right.
I mean, I can see that. It is a sperm-ish looking carp.
Yeah, exactly. I fucking love it, man.
Well, it's a good interpretation, Yelma. Thank you for that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Please go on Casey's
word picture.
Instagram. Yeah. Check out the penis carp on Casey's Instagram when you get a chance, folks.
So when did you make the move from Arizona to? Did you go to Portland from Arizona?
I did. Portland's funny. I had a group of friends move out to Portland in 2002, 2003 from San Diego. And so I started coming to Portland in that summer, and I would be here from May, and then I would go back to Arizona at the end of September to go back to school. So I did that for 6 or 7 years, and then I didn't do it for a few years. And basically I started working for a small production company with one of my best friends, or two of my best friends. And they were based out of Portland. And they started getting busy enough that I was flying out here quite a bit, or flying to meet them for projects, and we were working super remotely, and they were just like, "Do you want to move to Portland?" And I was like, "Yeah." You know, like I was managing a restaurant in Arizona at the time, which was cool. I mean, I loved it, or I loved it sometimes. You guys know that world too. Yeah. I mean, it was cool, but my end goal, I guess, wasn't necessarily at that time to open a restaurant of my own, or live in a restaurant anymore. Like I said, fly fishing was consuming my life, and anything that I could do to have a little bit more life freedom was extremely appealing to me. And that's exactly what that move would have been. You know, like, the agency isn't incredibly busy. It didn't seem at the time that it was going to be a full-time gig, but it could have turned into a full-time gig. And I was happy doing that, plus doing my stuff on the side, and making ends meet, basically giving me the freedom to do whatever I wanted to do, which was go fishing all the time.
Yeah.
Oregon is obviously a much fishier place than Arizona.
Yeah.
So that, the stars aligned. Plus, bike riding out here is really good. I had a group of friends that already lived here. Like, I wanted to be back in this zone anyway, so it was an easy answer of yes.
Yeah. But I mean, by the way you explain Arizona, and like catching your first fish was a brown trout, I mean, it sounds like the fishing was all right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Arizona is this weird little, I wouldn't say it's a secret. There isn't a ton of water in Arizona, but there is really good fishing if you know where to go, spots. And you're willing to put in the work. That's the thing with Arizona, is that you gotta fucking work.
Right.
Like, it's a 10-mile hike. Fishing through the Arizona mountains is not an uncommon thing, like,
jeez.
If you want to, but at the same point, you can catch a 30-inch brown in a creek that's 5 feet wide.
That's pretty cool.
So in eastern Arizona looks just like where we were fishing in Montana.
Really? Yeah, you were
like
saying
I could send you photos of eastern Arizona, and you'd be like, "That's Montana," and I'd be like, "Nope."
Oh wow. That's cool, man. Do you ever go back and fish it, or miss it, or?
Yeah, we go. That? Yeah, I mean, I miss it all the time, which is funny.
Yeah.
You always miss what you don't have, but we go back every winter. I don't really go fishing. I haven't fished the White Mountains, which is the eastern Arizona stuff, since I've moved. Like, we just haven't been home in the time that is a thing. Like, we go back for Christmas. I fished Lee's Ferry a couple times, because you can fish it in winter, being in tailwater, and then we did that trip, and I mean, I miss carp fishing around Phoenix almost every day. Like, you would think that moving to Portland would be like, you'd have fish like right at your doorstep, and I mean, you do-ish, like, there's steelhead within
for sure.
20 miles of downtown, or not even that far, probably 10 miles of downtown Portland. But in Phoenix, I could literally ride my bike a mile in any direction from my house and catch a 30-pound carp.
Wow, jeez, that's pretty
cool. It was, when I lived there, I took it for granted, because, I started carp fishing because it was that close to the house. It wasn't because it was like this romantic thing that it's become now, right? Like,
yeah.
It was just like, I need to go fishing. There's all these canals around the house. There's fish in them. I'm going to learn how to catch those fish. You know, like.
Yeah. That's a cool way to get. I mean, that's a really great way to get into carp fishing because people are. I mean, now it's like it's a thing now. You know, like, and I mean, you're doing a lot of carp fishing too in the summer months, right? Like, did you get a nice carp in Montana, or am I thinking about something else?
No, maybe that was, the day before I left,
Montana,
I went
right?
carp fishing.
Day before,
it was Columbia. Yeah, I mean, I do it here because I do love carp fishing. You know, like the carp fishing out here is completely different than it was in Arizona. But a big part of why I like it out here is that nobody does it. Like, you know, steelhead fishing is a thing, obviously. Yeah. Like, trout fishing is a thing. Like, it's harder to get away from people. Like, fishing in the culture is in the culture out here, so the vast majority of people fly fish it's everywhere, you know? Like, Arizona, it wasn't, when I was living there, it wasn't that big. It's a thing now. Like, when I go home, I run into people in the canal that I've never seen, you know, or heard of.
Wow, yeah.
And
it's crazy, eh? Like, this idea that, like, fly fishing, it's like you say out in Oregon, like, everybody's fly fishing, you know, and it's kind of, you see it everywhere. Like, it's cool. Like, we don't really have that here. I mean, there's a lot of people that fly fish here, but it doesn't, like, when we were in Montana, and it's like, everybody's fly fishing obviously in Montana, but it was just like, it was so cool because it's like, wow, this like actually like is a big thing out here. Like, it's a big thing, you know.
You read about it, you hear about it, and then you go, and it's like, yep, okay, they were right.
It's just crazy. Like, everybody fly fishes. It's like, wow.
It's like so when you think about that, you're like, oh, it's so awesome. Like, everybody fly fishes. Like, it's in the culture. Yeah. Like, you see fly fishing stuff everywhere. And then you go there and you're like, oh, that translates to like, you got to like wake up 2 hours before you want to be at the river because you got to beat people there and you got to battle for runs and you're like, oh
yeah, those spots, everybody, it gets packed, right? Yeah,
right.
That's interesting. So the carp, though, I mean, like, how you said it's different. Carp fishing's different there than it would be in Arizona. How is it different? What makes it different?
Carp fishing in Arizona. So the majority of the carp fishing we would do would be in like small neighborhood ponds. Or in the canal systems. So the canal systems is a pretty crazy / rad story that the canal systems bring in, you know, water from the major waterways like the Colorado River or the Salt River chain. And it basically makes Phoenix inhabitable in that you have drinking water and agricultural water and they all get piped in through these canals. A lot of these canals were originally dug by the Native Americans that inhabited that land 1,000 years ago.
Okay.
So they just used the same system and concreted them. And the carp come into play is that until like the mid 80s, they had to spend a ton of money every year dredging out all of the silt and vegetation that would build up in the canal system. And so then, I don't know who it was, I'm sure you could Google it, but someone along the line came in with like, we should just plant grass carp in there because they eat their weight a day in vegetation. And so we won't have to dredge out all of these things every year. We could just put these grass carp and these common carp in here and they'll get rid of the bugs. They'll get rid of the silt. You know, they'll basically just solve the problem.
That's crazy.
And so they put those in there and then they implemented the, you know, in the SRP canals, which are different than the Central Arizona project. Those come from the Colorado River. SRP canals, you're allowed to fish. It's catch and release fishing only. The grass carp are sterile, so they can't reproduce, so they can manage the population of them. But yeah, those fish have so much to eat that they get big.
That's wild. That's crazy, man.
Did they overpopulate by introducing them, a new species, or was it pretty much?
No, I mean, there's no. I mean,
they said they don't spawn, right? They don't reproduce?
No, they don't reproduce. They're sterile, and there's no threat for them to be... So Arizona's crazy because there's only one real natural lake in the entire state.
Right.
The rest are reservoirs.
Right.
So there's no worry about them competing with native fish because they don't live in areas that there are native fish, basically.
They're native fish. Right. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's
but
wild,
you know, when I
mentioned
mentioned
I didn't even know, like,
yeah, But when I mentioned the Central Arizona project ones, like we have in that lake that I went striper fishing with, those stripers got to that lake because they were introduced into the Colorado River below, below Lake Mead and below Lake Mead, basically. They found their way into the canal system. The canal led them to like how many miles is that? 250 miles to Central Arizona outside of Phoenix. They got into the lake, they reproduced, so now there's a striper population that is evolved.
In the canals.
In the canals and into that Lake Pleasant is what that lake is called. But yeah, I've got stripers.
So is that a bad thing,
stripers in
technically?
The thing.
Is that like bad?
No, because again, it's bad. They put them into the Colorado River, so now they have to,
Right.
Yeah.
That's bad because there's not native fish. But as we're learning, the Colorado River is going to seemingly dry up. So.
Really? Is it really?
I don't think fish populations are a worry right now.
Is the problem? Yeah. Is that due to like climate change?
Yeah, there's extreme drought. Like Lake Powell, which is right above Lee's Ferry, is at, it needs to drop like another 30 feet and it's unable to produce power.
Jesus.
Oh, wow.
Which,
So
if
sad.
it's unable to produce power, that means no water is getting below Lake Powell.
Yeah.
So the Grand
exactly.
Canyon will dry up. Lake Mead is, if you guys haven't seen, Lake Mead is already a puddle to what it should be.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, seems like a lot of stuff going on in that. Yeah, I mean, yeah. First of all, I didn't know there was canals. Like, that was the source of water for Phoenix. That's fucking crazy. That's really cool. That's really cool. And then the fact that you could just bike down there and catch 30-pound carp is wild.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
so
it's a really cool thing to have around Phoenix, and it is, it sucks when I go home and I got to compete for waterways, but it's awesome to see that is a thing now, like,
yeah,
it's cool
so it
that
has
it's
blown
become
up. People
such
are
a thing.
doing it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. So then in Oregon, like, it's obviously the fish are just more. They're not. I mean, it's just not canal fishing. That's how it makes the carp fishing different.
No, I think Oregon's its own world of carp fishing too. Is that for the most part, the carp that we're catching in the Columbia River are eating mussels.
Right.
So little clams and little mussels that they're digging around for. So we can't move the fly for them. Like they won't eat a moving fly. So it's a lot of, it's 100%, it's like flats. It's like flats fishing for bonefish, except for you're not stripping, right? Like,
right.
We're walking these expansive gravel flats and sometimes muddy sloughs, but effectively doing the same thing as sight fishing for fish that are rooting around looking for mussels or cruising, and they'll eat stuff that drops.
Right.
I don't say that they won't eat things that are stripped, because sometimes they'll get on the damsel bite around weed beds, but for the majority, it's you cast, drag, drop, watch them eat, set the hook.
Yeah.
Wow, what a cool way to fish carp, and also the fact that they're eating mussels. Like, it's pretty.
So
cool
that fly that's on the dickhead one is a mussel. It's a hybrid fly, which a friend that lives here developed. It's called so it looks like a worm and a mussel, basically. Like,
right on.
That's cool. Basically the only fly that you need to use for the Columbia River.
I love it.
There you go. I love it.
But yeah,
so
it's
what
cool.
kind of fishing? What kind of fishing are you doing like this time of year? I mean, now you're switching over to. You were out the other day, right? You were out Sunday, right?
Yeah, we floated a 30-mile stretch on the Deschutes from, it's called Max to Mouth, so Max Canyon to the mouth, where it intersects with the Columbia River. We're fishing for steelhead.
Nice. And how'd it go?
We found one fish between the three of us. It was pretty slow.
Yeah. Didn't
seem like it was good for anybody that we had talked to. I don't know. It is extremely hot for being the end of September. It was 90 degrees out there on Sunday, and
wow,
it should be cold.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So weird weather to steelhead in, Like,
it is, yeah. It was cold in the mornings, which is nice, and it's, the steelhead game is it's a morning and evening game predominantly. That's your best chances, but you can catch them during the day too, but yeah, regardless, it was a fun float, but we're getting into there's salmon around now, and if it ever decides to start raining, the salmon fishing will get good. It's projected to be, and is already, a really good coho year. So
okay, yeah, nice.
Those things are assholes, but you can get them to eat sometimes.
Like they're kind of are they notoriously kind of tricky to hook or?
Yeah, I mean they're not eating, so you're just trying to piss them off. They're aggressive. They chase things, and if they're in an aggressive mood, I don't know. I fished a river the other day, and there were coho rolling fucking everywhere, but they wouldn't move for a fly.
Oh, man, that's got to be frustrating, eh?
That is so frustrating.
It's frustrating, but I don't know. I don't know what's better. If you can see the fucking fish not eat, or you know that they're there and they're not eating, or if you just like think that they're not there. I haven't decided.
That's better for sure. That's better.
You think that's better? I mean, with steelhead fishing, you're like, oh, there's just no fish here. When there probably are a bunch of fish.
Wasn't
there.
me.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably. That's how I feel with steelhead fishing here, because it's when we're swinging flies for steelhead on rivers that maybe some of the rivers we fish don't necessarily get a ton of fish, and it's like there's pressure, and also you're swinging like a dry line or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like the odds are stacked against you, right? But it's like you can't see them miss the fly. But when you don't catch a fish, you can leave and just be like, well, there's no fish yet. We just need some rain,
Yeah. Right. Right.
Feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah. The steelhead out there, though, out west, are notoriously having a bit of a hard time. Like, what's the return expected to be like this year on some of the rivers? Is it a good story, or is it still kind of like a little bit?
This year's a. I mean, you put everything into perspective, right? This year is a good return year. We're on pace with the 10-year average.
Okay.
The downside to that is that this last 10-year average was significantly, and by significantly I mean, maybe a third to as half as good as the previous 10 years before that.
Oh wow. Jeez.
Everything is cyclical. Historically, that cycle does that. It's up 10, down 10, up 10, down 10. But this year, we had a really good winter run of fish. Winter weather lasted well through June. Like, we got a ton of rain all the way through June, which translated into a good early return of fish. It seems to be kind of slowing down now, I think, because it is so hot and has been so dry. I'm hoping that once it starts raining again, we'll get a good final push of these summer fish. But we'll see. I mean, I don't know. But the return has been good. There's been tons of people catching fish.
Okay,
I'm weird with steelhead. Like, I love steelhead. I don't fish for steelhead a ton.
Okay.
Kayla and I actually coincidentally talked about this earlier today. It was like, they're having such a hard problem on their own.
Yeah.
And granted, we are doing it in the least harmful way. We're swinging flies. We have the less percentage of encountering these fish that we can. But still, that encounter could possibly be detrimental to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's this weird battle of like, these fish are very visibly becoming extinct in front of our eyes. Like, I think we need people fishing for them because we need people fighting for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much I need to fish for them to fight for them. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
I go a couple times.
Yeah.
I mean, I go a couple times a year, and it is honestly like one of the only things we can fish for in the winter. Winter steelheading is a lot easier for me to wrap my brain around because A, I suck at it, and B, I suck at it. So
me too. I hate steelhead. Fucking hate it.
But I love like steelhead to me is such a romantic thing. Like, it's hard to live in the Pacific Northwest and not be a steelhead person. Like, it is 100% the fishing culture here. And I love the act of, I love spay casting. I love working through a run. It is completely different than any other kind of fly fishing I do. And I love it for that,
Yeah.
So I don't think that I would ever stop. Like, I could totally see myself becoming the person that like is just clipping hooks off flies and doing it for the grab, Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Not necessarily there yet. I'm not sure where I'm at.
I feel you.
Just haven't been fishing for them a lot.
Yeah.
I like
no,
that.
I know what you mean, and I mean, you've got lots of experience fishing. I think you know your relationship to the fish is solidified, right? So you can be in that kind of point where, you're like, actually, I'm gonna just like leave them be.
I think I don't know, but that's my thing with steelhead is that I wouldn't say that I'm proficient at it. Like I think that I can cast well enough. I think I know well enough what to do, but my experiences with catching fish isn't that high. Like, I've never put I don't want to say that. I have put a lot of effort in, but like lately, now that I seemingly know what I'm doing, I don't put the same amount of effort in, so I don't catch a lot of fish. But it's still there. Is that like I don't feel like I've mastered it by any stretch of the imagination. I don't even think I've scratched the surface. I have caught a steelhead like every way that I've wanted to. I've caught it on a dry fly. I've caught one, swinging flies, winter fish, summer fish. I've done it every way that I've, wanted to, but I wouldn't say that I've mastered anything.
Oh man, that's steelhead in a nutshell, right? It's like
right, but I definitely know
so
people that like they're like, if I go fishing, I'm going to catch a fish, and they do. So I'm like, damn, that would be nice.
Totally with you.
The 10,000 hours doesn't work with steelhead fishing at all. That theory does not coincide with steelhead fishing.
No.
Yeah, I think I'm well above that average as well.
Yeah.
I love it.
Hey, Casey, do you have any friends in Tampa right now?
In Tampa?
Yeah.
No, I have a friend that lives in Naples.
Naples? I just got a message. I'm working with this guy. I'm freelancing with this guy, and he's in Tampa. He just had to put his hurricane shutters on. He just texted it to me. He's like, "I'll be back in a bit." I'm like, "Holy shit!"
Oh, the hurricane.
Yeah, we got a few friends in Orlando, and they're hunkering down too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, tis the season.
Tis the season. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you saw what was happening out east too, right?
Like, it was like Scotty and Kate just got blasted.
Yeah, they were sending pictures of floods and stuff. I was like, oh my god! Like, we've got Casey every show. We've got this thing called Mitchie's Fishies 5, where it's like 5 questions we ask every guest. So gonna ask you them now, and they're just kind of 5 more general fishy questions, just broader about your fishing life and that kind of thing. And I'm gonna pull them up because somehow I always forget what they are, even though Aldo always like, okay, okay. So the first
Aldo's
one,
not here, Mitch. Okay, fuck.
I know, he's always like, Mitch, how do you forget these? You ask them every podcast. I'm like, I don't know. I always just draw a blank. The first question to Mitchie's Fishies 5 is, if you had to pick a favorite fish, what would it be and why? If you had to pick one.
I think your favorite fish is always the next fish, right? So I think my favorite fish would probably be a fish that I haven't had the chance to catch. So golden dorado, I think, would be on my number 1 bucket
list. That's a cool answer. Yeah, golden
dorado. They seem
cool.
like the pinnacle of everything that I would love in a fish. So I'll say that's my favorite fish.
Those fish are crazy, man. I'm totally with you. I want to catch one of those too. Are you gonna get a shot at any of them? You think?
I don't know.
Upcoming? You got any plans?
No plans. Yeah. It seems like I think that fish is like, it's a bucket list because it's expensive to do, and I can't really foresee myself being able to afford that gnarly trip.
Yeah, that's a heck of a trip.
Yeah, but that is also part of what makes it so rad. Is that like you have to go to the craziest places to find those things. So.
Yeah. I'm not coming with you.
No doubt.
That's all on you.
All right. There's no grizzly bears in the Amazon.
Yeah, but there's
no. Yeah, you're good, Yoma. Good. Grizzly bears.
I think I'd rather grizzly bear than one of those little poisonous frogs that are just like this small. I'm just kidding.
Golden dorado, man, like those fish are so cool.
Yeah.
Like I saw someone we know actually up here in the Toronto community. He was just fishing for them and got a beautiful fish, and I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah, they look insane,
man.
I'm totally kidding, Casey. If I am scared, but I'd still do it.
Okay,
at least once.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, you might not sleep for that week, but you'd be.
Doesn't matter. I can sleep after.
True.
If I die fishing, that's not a bad way to go. Hey.
Nah, that's a good way to go.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man, that's good. Okay, number 2, Mitchie's Fishies 5 is if you could fish, and maybe this is gonna be the same answer, but if you could fish anywhere in the world right now, assuming it's the best time of year to go there, and the fishing's gonna be amazing, where would you go? If you could go through time and seasons and go fish anywhere, what would it be?
No, I would want to fish like a Columbia River tributary when the runs were what they were in the 30s. Or before that,
nice.
like when they were at their historical high.
Yeah.
That is
that's the
first time that answer's ever come up. Sorry to interrupt. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, the Columbia River had the world's largest run of anadromous fish. Like salmon, steelhead was the highest in that river, and its tributaries got the most of that run.
Yeah.
I think that would be the one. Yeah. But that's the question of, do I get to retain the knowledge that I have now, or do I go back to that time period's knowledge?
Oh no, you get to retain the knowledge.
I get to retain the knowledge? Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
and gear. You can bring the gear.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, I'm time traveling with a spay rod and
Man, you'd be roping fish. It'd be insane.
Time travel.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
That'd be cool. And that's like those classic pictures of like anglers with like the stringers of fish, and it's just like 100 giant fish, and it's just like, God, it's crazy, man.
Yeah, the Columbia had a May run of Chinook salmon that were, upwards of 120 pounds.
Like, that's so insane.
The May monsters. And yeah, they're extinct now.
Oh my God.
I love when I go in the river and Mitch, you can attest to this. And then we meet a guy who's, he's like, 80. He's like, well, when I used to fish, there'd be so many fish in the river. I'm like, yeah, I wonder how they all died.
Yeah, right.
I wonder why they're not there anymore. But
we kept everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I wonder what happened.
Yeah. Okay, number 3 of Mitchie's Fishies 5 is, what is your best or favorite fishing memory? Or one of your best or favorite fishing memories ever? That's a lot of memories.
It is a lot of memories. I think my favorite fishing memory is pretty funny because it's the story of how I proposed to Kayla.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I had this elaborate plan that we were in Ascension Bay and we had a guide and she was tarpon fishing, and I had this plan that, she was going to catch a tarpon and she was going to turn around and I was going to drop down to my knee and propose, and the guide was going to film it, and it was going to be this like everything that you envision in your life, right?
Yeah.
And so that day came. I was a fucking nervous wreck that whole trip anyways. I don't know why I was nervous, but I was. We went tarpon fishing, and now that you've met Kayla, you understand the type of person that Kayla is. You haven't seen this side of Kayla because you didn't get to see the like crazy fish obsessed Kayla. So it's a whole different world of Kayla. She had never caught a tarpon. We're chasing tarpon all day. She's having shots all day. Like, they're just not like, either the fish is missing the fly, or they're just not turning on the fly, or whatever it is, but she's like hyper focused, She gets one to eat finally, and keep in mind, I'm like, I got ring in my pocket, I'm like ready to do all this shit. She like hooks one and it burns her finger, like on the hook set, and it runs and burns the finger, and then it spits the fly, and she turns around and looks at me like Sigourney Weaver in Ghostbusters with the glowing red eyes. She's like, give me tape now. And I'm like, oh my God, and I'm like, well, this is not going to be the day. I mean, it was the day, but I was like, this plan of like proposing to you on the boat, like, you are not in the mindset of me doing this. And honestly, like, looking back, I should have still gone through with that plan. It still would have been awesome. But it was like, I was so scared of her in that moment. I was like, no, tape. You need tape? Here you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I ended up like, we get back. She caught a tarpon. She was happy. Like, it was her birthday.
Nice.
The lodge made her a cake. Wow. And then I was like, hey, we got to get the fuck out of here. Like, we got to get back to Tulum. Like, and because I had this plan of like, like there was a pretty rad spot on this beach, and I was like, I'll just do it there, like.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll do it there, but we got to get there while it's still light. So I like rushed her out of this like party basically that the lodge was throwing for her. And I mean, it was a fucking mess, but I think it turned out okay.
Yeah, and then everything worked out on that beach.
Everything worked out on that beach. I mean, I fumbled
beautiful
the fucking,
sunset.
You know, I fumbled the speech that I had planned, and I don't know.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you know, ultimately she said yes, and it's a kind of a funny story, and it's definitely my most memorable fishing story, which is hilarious because I didn't fish one cast that day.
I love
great,
it,
man. I love that story. That's hilarious.
Romantic.
Yeah, those engagement stories, when you're so precious about it, they always, like, everybody that's told me they're like how they proposed their wife, and like they were like they had this big thing in their head. It never works out.
Never works out, right? Yeah, and I think a lot of that is like because you get you wind it up into this thing, and that you put so much pressure on yourself, and you're so fucking nervous about things. It never happens. Like,
totally. I love that. It's great. Wow, what a good day for Kayla, like getting a fish. It's her birthday proposal. That's a heck of a day, man.
Tape
now. I had to ruin the day by proposing. You know, she's like, "Fuck, I guess I'll need it."
Oh, that's awesome. Ascension Bay is a whole other thing we could talk about, but yeah, we'll leave that for the next one.
You got it. You guys got it. You guys are coming this time.
Yeah.
Oh man, I want to, like, after hearing you guys talk about it, and I know Aldo went down and we talked to Kayla about their trip, and it just sounds amazing.
But can we not shoot, Mitch? Let's just have a time. The same thing.
Just go.
Yeah, like
just go. And fish,
I just want to
man.
fucking fish. Okay, I don't want to hold the camera.
No.
Jeez.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Thanks.
Yeah. No, I'm down.
Mitch is like, why are you getting so angry, man? You don't have to.
You don't have to, man. Like, strap a GoPro to your head and call it a day.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, number 4, Mitch's Fishies 5 is why do you fly fish? What do you get out of fly fishing? Why do you do it at all?
I think that changes day to day. I mean, on a grand scope of things, I think is like an over-encompassing thing. I really like introducing people to the places that fly fishing brings you.
Yeah.
I think I get more out of that than anything. You know, like fly fishing as an experience is probably why I fly fish, as an over-encompassing thing. Bringing people in it and having them be able to experience that through their own eyes I get a lot out of that. You know, like Mexico. You know, like talking about Mexico and seeing Mexico, like seeing how, like obviously like Mexico to me is super special, and to Kayla is super special, and that place is super special. But like, bringing someone there and having them experiencing it and it being special on something completely different is amazing to me. Mm-hmm. You know, like, and Lee's Ferry is another one of those places. And fly fishing has allowed me to go to so many of these special places, you know, like seeing people get to experience that, and, you know, and there's a lot that comes with that, you know, like, again, like I said with steelhead, like, we need people to fish for steelhead to protect the steelhead. Like, we need people to experience these places and these cultures and these fish to protect those things and protect all of the reasons that it makes them so special. You know, like we're in a pretty crazy time where we're losing a lot of these places and pretty quickly.
Yeah. Shockingly quickly.
And then on I guess like on a and then on like a microcosm, like, I keep fishing because I like new experiences. Like, I like finding new experiences. I still love the game of catching and fooling a fish through fly fishing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, on a personal level, like, it can be everything from a extremely awesome social thing with friends in the community that I've made, and it can also be a place where I can go do it completely on my own and detach from everything that weighs you down, so to speak. You know, like, I honestly get a lot more than I give credit to fly fishing. So
yeah, that's a great answer. I mean, there is a ton of reasons, you know, and I think that's I think you've hit a whole bunch on the head. It's interesting, fly fishing, like, even talking about steelhead and like how it's like, is it ethical, you know, and like, how do I justify doing this? Sometimes I struggle with that, you know, like, I'm like, I love this fish so much because of fly fishing. I've gotten so much emotional attachment to like a trout, and then it's like, and then I stick a hook in its face and I kind of like mess with it, and maybe it dies, and it's like, I feel so conflicted all the time, you know?
Yeah, it's tough. but
yeah,
here we are, living contradictions.
Yeah. Well, you know, actually, like we asked somebody this once, and it was he had like such a good answer, like because we were talking about he was a tarpon angler and like wrote a book all about tarpon called Lords of the Fly, Monty Burke, and he was like, you know what? He's like, it's a thing I have to question every day, and I just kind of like every day I kind of have to find my own justification until I can't, and then I'll stop fishing. You know what I mean?
Totally. I can lie to myself every day about something.
Yeah.
Until I run out of line.
You know, I've got to just, and then I got to just, you know, until I can't. But yeah, it's interesting. It's a weird thing, fly fishing.
Yeah, and I think that we all go through this. We all go through that phase too. You know, like we'll all, I think, ultimately get to a space where like, you know, our reasons for not fishing will outweigh our reasons for fishing, you know?
Yeah.
Whatever those reasons would be, whether it's health or whatever, you know? But that's how it goes.
Yeah. Until then, we will keep on trucking.
That's
I
right.
definitely will. Okay, so the last of the Mitchie's Fishies 5, number 5, is what fly pattern represents you best and why? Like, if you were a fly, what would you be? What fly actually represents Casey Badger as an angler? As a person.
I feel like it'd be a very competitive fly.
These are deep questions. Hell
yeah, man.
Ironically, like I'm not as competitive now as I used to be. I was a competitive child. I've grown out of that competitiveness.
Yeah,
a humble fly.
Shit, I don't know, man.
That's for sure.
It's tough.
It's a tough one, man. It's just gonna go in a coffee table book one day. So you know. Just don't say woolly bugger, man. Just don't say
woolly bugger. Shit.
Sometimes people take a long time thinking about this.
God, this
so
is
take your time,
fucking
man.
tough.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you might say, yeah.
Oh, God, I don't know. It's tough.
Ask Kayla. Text her right now.
Kayla? What am I?
That's a good question, yeah.
Yeah, what fly?
Kayla'd be like, I don't know.
I think
she'd be like, you're like
question where
you're like a bead, you know, like you're dirty.
A bead.
You're like a San Juan worm. You're like a dirty version of a fly. No, I don't know. That. Man, I think I would like to believe in a romantic world. Maybe I'm like a modern take on like a muddler, you know, like a classic fly that has some, you know, artistry to it that, you know, can adapt and be fished in a multitude of ways for a variety of fish. I think that would be where I'm at. Like, there's not many fish that won't eat a muddler, so I'd like to think that I'm a fisherman that will catch all the fish.
I think that you are, man. I think that you are. You're one fishy dude, and I think this is you're one of those guests that, you know, I think you, Kayla, like we've had lots of people on the show that are just like, they could be so many different episodes, you know? So it's like, we've done this episode where we get to know you, and then the next one will be in person somewhere doing some crazy fishing trip, you know? I think that.
Yeah, or maybe we just all need to go to Argentina. We'll win the lottery somewhere along the line, and we can go catch some Dorado.
Yep.
Hell yeah, man! I love it. That's the show, Casey. And like honestly, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm really glad that. Yeah,
was it? It was an hour and a half.
Flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. It was quick, huh?
Yours was pretty long. Yeah, we kept going, man. Not in a bad way, of course.
It's fun to chat, man.
It is fun to chat.
It was fun to finally get to like fish in Montana too, and actually hang out and hopefully we can connect again in person on the water sometime. And Yilma, you got to come out too. And
Oh, it'll happen.
Thanks so much for coming on, Casey.
Sure. Thank you.
Oh, question for you.
Oh.
Where can
Mitchie
people,
6.
if there's anything you want to
this is right. This is
Mitchie 6. See, this is the 6th question.
Yeah, Casey, this is what Aldo kind of like, you know, at the end.
This is where Aldo
comes in.
This is where he steps in. If there's anywhere people can find stuff that you care about, you know, like what do you want to share with people? Are there videos people you want to show people or drive people somewhere, or your Instagram? Like where can people find you?
Yeah, I think I run my life pretty transparently through Instagram, so I think that's probably the best place. And it's easy. It's just at my name. It's just at KC Badger. I put everything from, you know, I won't say I put all of the art stuff I do. There's a lot of work stuff that is boring that I won't put you through on there. But yeah, I mean, fish, bikes, art, pictures of Juniper. It's all on there.
Oh man, Juniper's the best. We'll put the link to your Instagram in the show notes as well, so people can check that out. But thanks so much for coming on the show, dude. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Awesome. Nice to meet you, Yilma.
Nice to meet you too, Casey.